All right, and welcome into the Buffalo Basement Podcast. My name is Matt Dygert. I have my co-host with me tonight, Pat Bruckness, as we welcome in our special guest, Sal Capaccio from WGR, Bill sideline reporter, and we definitely want to thank him for being on tonight. We're going to go through some of the stuff from the Bills preseason game from Saturday, and then talk about some of the practice things this week, and then touch on some things that we want to see from Saturday. So first and foremost, Sal, welcome to the show. I definitely want to thank you for being on.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Enjoy a beautiful night in downtown Buffalo. I'm actually sitting out at Salem Field for the Bison's game. I just kind of came upstairs a little bit here as we talk. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's get right into it here. I mean, now as far as Saturday goes, the Bills won 23-19 and 23-19, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we really keep score in the preseason? Who knows?
Exactly. So, but the major thing is watching some of the players and things like that. So, if you wanna kind of go into it, what were the things that you were watching for, and some of the things that you took from the game?
I'm always just kind of watching the performance, of course, but I'm also watching to see when each guy goes in, how much they play, right? What is that? That tells me a lot, maybe, of what the staff thinks about them at that point, where they are in the depth chart, basically, because they can put out a depth chart all they want, but really their actions will speak louder than the words of the depth chart. So I was watching for that. I think the quarterbacks are obviously a big storyline because throughout camp we've heard, maybe the backup quarterback spot wasn't looking that great, struggles. I think it's kind of been overblown. I think that, Kyle Allen with a new system, working with the number twos, not a game plan, nothing like that. I thought he actually played pretty well. Had a couple tough throws, but also some drops. And then, of course, Matt Barkley looked amazing. So that's interesting now. It's going to be that's a true competition there. And then, of course, the other position battles, middle linebacker, cornerback, guard. Those are the ones that I was looking for. And then overall, just to get back in that stadium. First time since, the Bills lost to the Cincinnati Bengals in the playoffs last year. And it was obviously a tough day. So it was nice to get back in there and see and hear the fans.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely nice to see DeMar get some love from the fans, get back on the field and start hitting. Definitely glad to see he's able to overcome what happened to him last year. With that being said, I mean, I know Pat has a couple questions here for you real quickly, and then we'll get to some other stuff.
Well, Sal, first, thank you for coming on.
You got it, man.
My first question is, do you think Andy Isabella will make the roster, and what are your thoughts on it?
Boy, I still think it's maybe at best a 50-50 chance for him, but I think he's climbing. If you would have asked me the day he signed, I'd say, I don't know, 5-10%. And then a week later, I'd say 20-25%. And now maybe I'm getting closer to him really having a shot. I mean, he's impressive, guys. He's got great speed. I mean, I joke, but he looks like he belongs on my flag football team, right? I mean, that's just like what he looks like out there. But he's making plays, and he's super fast. I think for me, it comes down to really the numbers. I mean, you got Khalil Shakir and Deontay Hardy, and Hardy's obviously going to be a big part of the offense. And are you going to move off Khalil Shakir that quick? And if you want all three of them and keep Andy Isabella, who does the odd man out? Because then you have three smaller slot receivers, all can return. You're duplicating a position. So my thought is that he's played really well. I've been very impressed. I don't know how the numbers wash out at that position. And, going back to Saturday, I mean, that's some really nice guys in the depth chart too, like Marcel Aitman and Desmond Patman, and of course, Tyrell Shavers makes some plays as well. So I think that's a really interesting competition.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, as far as Isabella, I mean, I'm of the mind that I think Shorter still is up above him on the depth chart personally. If the Bills were to keep 7, I could see him staying. But honestly, at this point right now, I mean, everybody run wild with it. I mean, he got his own press conference today, and things like that. So I would like to see them use somebody like him on the offense. Coming out of the slot and things like that. I mean, he was real good, coming out of the slot.
Yeah, let me just, I know everybody's having fun with it, just so everybody knows how it works. So once we're done with practice, we always have a couple of different players go to the podium, because during the preseason and training camp, we can't go in the locker room like we can in the regular season. There's too many guys, 90 guys are going through the roster. So we get a couple guys at the podium. If we want anybody else, we go through PR. Well, since Andy Isabella signed, we hadn't heard from him. So since obviously he'd been making some plays and people have been talking about him, PR made him available for us to talk to him, because I think a lot of people have been requesting we'd like to talk to Andy. So that's easier for them to just put him at the podium. So I chuckle when people say he got his own press conference. Yes, he was made available to the media by PR because we hadn't heard from him yet.
No, and that's the thing. I was joking around a little bit.
I know. I just
how
saw it today myself. I get
everybody's on Twitter freaking out about it. So I mean, have to joke around a little bit about it. But I know Pat, you had another question for Sal.
Yeah, my next question was, what is your opinion on McDermott calling the defense? Do you like it?
I'm excited for him. I'm intrigued by it. I'm interested by it. I think Sean's taking ownership and putting all the pressure on himself, and I think that's always really interesting. If something goes wrong, there's nobody to say it's this guy's fault or that guy's fault. Not that Sean would do that anyway. He's not done that over the last 2 years or 5-6 years. But what I'm saying is, like, this is on him. This is a team in a Super Bowl window. They're trying to win a championship. They have this defense that's top notch. It's been one of the top defenses in the league consistently over the last several years since his regime and tenure began. And here we go now that he's going to take charge and call the defense. I think that's putting a lot of pressure on himself. I also think that there's got to be something new, right? I mean, if you're going to do this after having Leslie Frazier and all the numbers that he put up and all the great defenses and the relationship and the respect that you have and the acumen that he has, there's got to be a wrinkle. What's the wrinkle, right? Is it more dime? Is it more 3 safeties? Is it more blitzing? Is it more man-to-man? That's why I'm intrigued. I think something's going to change. We don't know what it is, and it might not be right away. It's not like they're going to line up maybe against the Jets on September 11th. You're going to see this brand new defense. That's not going to be the case. I'm interested as the season goes on, different times, how they approach different scenarios, and maybe that's what looks a little bit different.
I've always been the mind of it's always been Sean McDermott's defense. It was just before Leslie Frazier was calling the plays, he was calling it in his way. Whereas now McDermott's going to be able to, kind of take the reins of it and be a little bit more aggressive how he was in Carolina, be a little bit more aggressive how he learned from Jim Johnston in Philly and things like that. So I'm really excited to see how he calls these plays and how aggressive he's going to be on the defensive side of ball, because we know how they are on the offense. Josh is just going to go out there and be Josh, like hands down. We just worry about, things we saw like last year in the Bengals game. You have guys playing 10 yards off. Well, not necessarily is a bad thing, but when you don't have a defensive line to kind of go forward and get to the quarterback and take advantage of all those, all the scheme fits and everything like that, there's no real way to allow the cornerbacks to sit that far back and do that. Whereas now, even Leonard Floyd said it the other day, he feels like he's on the best defensive line that he's ever been on. And as far as that goes, I really feel like I'm more excited for this defense than I am the offense this year.
I think it's going to be really interesting. We'll see what he comes up with. I think he'll have some new wrinkles, but obviously they're not going to suddenly change to a 3-4, right? But I mean, they'll have some different things. Taylor Rapp is interesting. I think his spot, how they use him, that could tell us a lot. But again, if anybody's looking for anything right away, immediately, game one, maybe you see something here or there, but they're not going to unveil some brand new defense that we've never seen before. It's going to be something that you see throughout the year that you say, you know what, they're doing this a little bit differently or do a little bit more this year.
That's definitely a good take on that, Sal, and I appreciate you, bringing that to light. And I as the season goes on, I'm excited to see how the defense evolves, especially with teams, because you still got the Bengals on the schedule this year, you still got the Chiefs on the schedule this year, you have the Eagles on the schedule this year, and I'm excited to see how they run the defense against those specific teams. But with that being said, let's kind of move on to the practice this week. And I know you can't really get into too much into it, but we had 2 days in a row that were very heated practices, if to call it, to say the least. As far as that goes, I mean, is that with Dodson? I mean, is that a frustration out of him that he's not getting, that he's struggling, or is that more because of something that happened on the field?
I guess you'd have to ask him that question. Okay. I just can tell you what I saw. And, there's obviously a fight between him and Spencer Brown is how it started. And then there was a big pile. And then there was a helmet that was being swung. And then there was a heated exchange with Josh Allen. Look, I mean, it's football. It's the time of year where we say they need to hit somebody else. Well, they did hit somebody else Saturday, and then they still get after it. But, these guys are fighting for positions. And sure, I think there's a lot of pressure on Tyrell Dodson right now to try and win that middle linebacker job. And I think that, anytime you have, a very physical, violent sport and you're fighting for every single inch and yard, and you're under pressure to perform, I think those things can happen. But the key is to not let them keep happening. I think it was a little bit too overboard earlier this week. I think that was Tuesday when all that happened. And that's on Sean McDermott to address that, and I'm sure he did. And but as long as everybody understands that there's a time and place to get ready and be efficient and not have those things affect your preparation, I think that's what the ultimate goal is here. You're never going to be able to necessarily stop all of that from happening, but I think you can make sure as best you can that it doesn't take away from what your ultimate goal is every single practice.
So to touch on that a little bit here, to kind of go a different direction with that is middle linebacker play. I mean, we know Bernard's hurt. We know Spector didn't practice again today. I saw your thing on Twitter that AJ Klein was making some plays today. Do you think that Dodson wins that job, or do you think that it's more going to lean towards the heavy veteran in Klein at this point right now?
Well, actually, and I made a mistake. Spector actually did practice today, and I had written he didn't, but he did. Just so everybody knows, that's on me. But Terrell Bernard did not practice today. So he wasn't out there. I'll just tell you what Sean McDermott said before practice. That they have to improve. He's not necessarily. I'm not going to say not liking. He needs to see more out of that spot, from the play to especially the communication, the leadership, lining people up. What goes into that particular spot for the middle linebacker. So, I don't know. Is Terrell Bernard the guy ultimately when he comes back that he winds up being the middle linebacker? I think Tyrell Dodson has the inside track because they know him. He's been a starter. He's played middle. He's played weak side. He's done all this. But look, I mean, to me, AJ Klein kind of represents a little bit of what Dane Jackson is at corner, which is he's the safe play. You know what you're going to get from him. Tyrell Dodson can be a little bit like that. But at least when AJ Klein's out there, you understand his limitations and what he can do well. You can design a game plan to be able to take advantage of those strengths. So I think his name should be in the discussion. And yes, he made several big plays today. One of them, he actually, knocked the ball down intended for Andy Isabella, and he didn't mean to, but he kind of hit Isabella really hard. It was because of the size difference. Really, is what happened. He actually got up and kind of dapped him up, like, "Hey, you okay?" And then a little bit later, he picked off Matt Barkley in a really athletic play. So he's trying to keep his name in this discussion, and I think as long as Sean keeps thinking that this can be won by anybody, that we shouldn't discount any of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I mean, as I was saying before, I'm super excited for the defense, but that is the one spot that I am a little worried on. I mean, I know they can do things to put people in the right positions, but if that player makes the wrong read or hits the wrong gap at the wrong time, you could see 80-yard touchdowns. Like it's unfortunate. I mean, and we were all, last year getting on Edmonds about missing tackles, or even throughout his whole career is missing tackles and being out of position every once in a while. But now it feels like, especially from watching Saturday's game, I feel like, Dodson has just been out of position, almost lost out there in the starting middle linebacker role right now. And I really want to see what Bernard and Klein and Spector can do if they get their chance with the ones. And then, with that being said, I mean, let's go to kind of a little bit of offense here. I mean, that play that Josh had that we saw from, the Bills app and everything like that, with him rolling right and just whipping the ball out there. It's just a Josh Allen type thing to do, and it was one of the nicest throws I've seen, from him, and it's another just Josh Allen type play. I mean, how do you feel about that?
About the play itself?
Yeah.
I mean, almost every single day, Josh Allen does something that I say to somebody on the sidelines, like today, there are no other people who can do that. Like, he made a play. He did the same thing maybe Tuesday, I think it was. He's kind of rolling right, and he was off his back foot being chased and just threw an over-the-shoulder pass going that same way, though, perfect in stride to Gabe Davis for a touchdown. It's like, that's just something that maybe a couple people on this planet can do other than Josh Allen. So, yeah, I mean, that's just Josh being Josh. And look, that's what practice and training camp is for, to get on the same page and try those things out. If something's not working, you don't want to throw an interception ever, but it's not like it costs you in a real game. So that's when you do that.
And kind of touch on the last thing that I wanted to touch on for this for the week of practice is, everybody's super excited about Dalton Kincaid. I mean, how do you see him not necessarily being used this year, but how do you see him like finishing the year almost? Like if he makes it through healthy, everything like that, do you think he's going to be up there in the 50, 60 yard or 50, 60 receptions, or do you think he's going to be less used at this point in his rookie year?
I think he's going to be very, very used. I think they drafted him with a plan in mind, and you don't trade up 2 spots for a tight end in the first round if a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl and do it for the long term. You do it for the short term and the long term. You got to use him, and I think that's exactly what the plan is. He has a very legitimate shot to get to those kinds of numbers. It's amazing to think the rookie tight end reception record for the Buffalo Bills is only 38 catches. He would only have to get 39 catches to have the highest total ever for a rookie tight end in Buffalo Bills history. I don't see how he pretty much should shatter that staying healthy, because I think they're going to use him a ton. I think they have a specific plan for him. They've tried to go to this model with these 2 tight ends and 12 personnel. They signed O.J. Howard and Jacob Hollister and Tyler. They've had Tyler Croft. They have all these guys, and it just never worked out. I think they finally said, let's just go do it finally and make sure that we have our right guy, and they got the best guy they could for it.
Well, I'm excited that they got Kincaid. I really liked him, especially in the USC game with a lot of the college football that I watched, myself, and he did prove to be one of the top receiving options in all of college football last year. And I'm super excited that he fell to the Bills, because I know that a lot of the guys that were ranking him were 15 and higher. A lot of the trusted guys that were ranking him were 15 and higher, and I really really glad he fell. And I think somebody said it on ESPN that the league better watch out if he falls to the Bills. So and so before you get going here, I know you got to get back to the baseball game, go watch Bo Bichette and on assignment. So, but real quickly, what do you want to see, and what things are you going to be watching on Saturday, 6:30 for the Steelers game?
Well, we know the starters are going to play about a quarter and a half. That's what Sean McDermott said. So I'm interested to see. I want to watch them not get hurt. That's what I want to see. But I want to see Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and how the first offense looks. And Dalton Kincaid, I think it's a really big storyline. He didn't play that much last week. And if the starters are playing, I think he's going to be very much in the mix to be, whether he's on the field, the first player or not every game. I think I consider him a starter. So I want to see, what that looks like. And I'm looking forward more to that middle linebacker battle. Corner 2 is a really big one. We'll see, how they go there with Dane Jackson and Christian Benford and Kyer Elam. But the other thing I'm looking forward to is the Steelers are going to use their starters, and what Kenny Pickett and George Pickens look like against the Buffalo Bills defense. And I think that's going to be really interesting. Not a lot of times in preseason get starters on starters for about a quarter, and I think we're going to see that.
So I do have one final question here from one of our users on YouTube here, and he's wondering how long of a timetable do you think it is going to be on Von Miller?
Well, I think it's going to come down to just simply what they want to do with the roster and keeping him off the field however long they want. The timetable to me is he'll probably be ready to play week 1, but that's going to come down to the Bills feel that they need him to go out there that early, or could he do a little bit more rehab and keep him on the shelf for another 4 weeks. So it's tough to say. I don't know what they're going to do. I do truly think it's a tough decision for Brandon Beane, because if they take him off PUP and he plays week 1, well, then you obviously have to have the roster spot, and you're going to, get rid of somebody else and move on from somebody else. But also, how much does he play those first several weeks? Or you could save the roster spot, keep him on PUP. He doesn't play for 4 weeks, but then first time he plays, week 5, week 6, how that looks like, I think they have to balance all of that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him. But I also want them to be not as heavily restrictive as they were with like Trey White last year, but because this is his second time to go through it, and he knows what he's doing. He's a freak athlete. Let's be serious. I mean, he was already doing stuff in March of this year after having that, in November. But as far as that goes, I'm excited to see him, but I'd rather them hold him out until week 6, 7, 8, just to kind of, we need him for the playoffs, not necessarily for week 1 against the Jets. So, but with that being said, Sal, I do want to thank you very, very much for coming on. Hopefully we can do it again sometime, during the season maybe, but definitely thank you for coming on.
You guys got it, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. No problem. Thank you again.
All right, Pat. So that was Sal Capaccio, and definitely I want to thank him again for coming on, and he gave us some good insight into not only Andy Isabella but Von Miller, a lot of different things. How do you feel that with everything he was saying?
I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. I liked what he said about Andy Isabella. I'm glad we got clarity about the whole. He got his own conference.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people on Twitter were like, "Oh, he's getting his own conference now. He's going to make the team." Now we know it's not that. It's a matter of fact that we haven't talked that the Bills media and the media have not talked to him.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I would love to see him make this team. I mean, he's smaller like Cole Beasley was, but he's faster. He's 4.31 speed, and he seems to be light years ahead of anybody behind him, and even shorter too. Like, yes, Shorter's a freak athlete. He has one of the better builds that you see he's built like T.O. was, but.
Yeah.
He's got to be able to get on the field and prove that he has a spot on this team, whereas Andy Isabella last week was 3 of 42, or three receptions for 42 yards, and they were good yards. Unfortunately, he had a Dan Carpenter moment, getting up and trying to signal for first down, and ran into the the Colts player, and fell right back down. But as far as that goes, I would like to see him make the team personally. Do I think he does? I think he's minimum a priority practice squad, but I think he takes over Justin Shorter's spot. I really do. I think he gets that 6 wide receiver spot.
Me personally, I think if Saturday he does well with Josh, if he gets reps with Josh, and it goes well, he will make the team. I don't know why, but I see a lot of Cole Beasley and Andy Isabella. I don't know why. Maybe it's just a matter of fact of being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Because he looked like he was in the right place at the right time. Saturday against the Colts.
Yeah, and I mean that's definitely what it seemed like all the time. Like especially he uses speed and uses quickness to get in and out of that break against on his first catch, and took that for 20 something yards. I mean it's unheard of to see somebody like that in the slot. I mean, and I want to see those things. I want to give Josh the most weapons he can possibly have.
Just load the offense to the point they don't know how to stop.
And that's exactly what it is. You have Diggs, Davis, you have Kincaid, you have Knox, you could potentially have Andy Isabella in the slot, like as a slot receiver. I know they do trust Khalil Shakir, but those concentration catches have to kind of start to show up, because like we said, he third and 5, 3rd and 6, he drops a ball that he's wide open and the ball was in his hands.
And the target before that, he caught like a 20-yard pass, which was contested. Right.
And he's making these amazing catches, and then he drops the easy ones. That just to me tells me it's concentration.
It seems like the same thing that happened to Dawson Knox before he broke out on the scene. Do you feel that way too? Because I do. Like
but that's the thing with Shakir is, with Knox, is he took it upon himself to go get better during the offseason. I know that Shakir went and worked with Eric Moulds and things like that, but the concentration is something that he needs to stop running before he gets the ball. And, he's trusting his hands enough where he doesn't have to pay attention, but he needs to pay attention. And that's really the major thing that I really feel as though he needs to work on. It's almost like a Gabe Davis situation from last year, but like we found out that his injury may have been hurting his mentality more than what was being let on, and concentration on that to be able to make some of these catches. So, but with that being said, I mean I really want to see this offense have as many weapons as possible, and just like you said, be able to go in there and not stop us.
Yeah, but we're gonna put 45 on you. If you want to beat us, put up 46.
Right. Right. And they would have to figure out a way to, like Sal said, work through that McDermott defense because he hasn't had anything on film since 2016 as far as how he's going to call a defense.
And that was a long time ago.
So, but I mean, we got to see a little bit of it in the Colts game with the little bit of aggressive, blitzing at the beginning with, you had Hamlin coming off the end, you had Poyer coming off the end, you had,
Micah Hyde, I think came off
what's that?
I think Micah Hyde came off the edge quite a few times too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just different things and different schematics that they can, they bring in, and I'm excited to see what they can do with that. And I know Sal said he was excited too, to more intrigued than excited, but intrigued to see how he calls this defense. So,
yep. I want to ask you a quick question here.
Yeah.
There's one defensive drive that really stood out to me. It had to do Tim Settle with the half. I think he had a sack and a half, and then Puna Ford came up and blew it up on third down. Do you remember that drive?
I do. It was the one where Settle and Boogie Basham got to the quarterback, and then so they basically had 2 sacks of Gardner Minshew right in a row, and then the third down play. Yeah,
I really like that. That's one drive, one series that really stands out to me. To see our interior defensive line causing havoc.
The whole defensive line stood out to me all game. I mean, you had Settle, and then you had Puna Ford. Ed Oliver was being a little bit disruptive himself, even though he wasn't in as long as some of the other guys. But we're talking about the first preseason game. We're not talking first regular season game. Yeah, so I'm excited to see what McDermott does with this defensive line specifically because on different, you have like we've gone over it a bunch of times, but on at defensive tackle you have Daquan Jones, you have Ed Oliver, you have Puna Ford, you have Tim Settle, you have Jordan Phillips. On defensive end you have Leonard Floyd, you have AJ Epinesa, you have Von Miller when he comes back, you have Greg Rousseau, you have Boogie Basham, and I'm probably forgetting somebody, but those guys, a lot of them, and there was times during training camp where they would have 3 defensive ends in and one defensive tackle, and you'd have like Leonard Floyd and Rousseau running stunts on one side, and then you'd have the other guys on the other side, and there's so many different things that they can do, and I'm super excited to see it.
So am I. I can't wait, especially with our week 1 matchup coming up. It's a little bit away. They had their offensive line problems. Our defensive line looks good. Obviously, it's just preseason week 1, but it's still good. It's something nice to see.
I feel bad for them. The first 2 games of the Bills and the Cowboys. Like what worst 2 ways can a team start the season? So with that though, I mean, what do you feel like? How do you feel like the game on Saturday is going to go?
It's going to be one in the trenches, especially with the starters out there. Pittsburgh's defensive line is really good. Our defensive line is really good. Our offensive line looks better. It does. And
what are you excited to see on Saturday, like position-wise specifically?
The right tackle. I want to see TJ Watt line. I want to see Spencer Brown have to block TJ Watt. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely one of the things I'm looking forward to see is how our line handles TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith. I mean those guys are pretty serious competition, and I want to see how our line with Dawkins, McGovern, Morse, and either Bates or Torrance, and then Brown handle them and keep Josh upright, because like Sal said, the most important part out of this game is to make sure that the starters are healthy.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. So let's make sure that Allen stays upright.
Which leads into my next question. How do you feel like our offensive line played Saturday against the Colts?
I really liked what Spencer Brown and Osiris Torrance did next to each other on most plays. I'm not surprised that Brandon Shell retired, because he did not look like he did not have that great of a game. But I will say, Ryan Vandermark, and then Alec Anderson both had really good games from everything that I saw. Watching it and breaking that down, I really think that Alec Anderson has a spot on this team.
So do I. It'll be nice.
And it was unfortunate to see Tommy Doyle go down. Luckily, that was just a contusion. He was back, and
and he's still okay, by what I've heard.
What's that?
I've heard he's okay.
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying. I'm glad he's okay, and I think he's got a spot on this team too, as long as he can stay healthy. Because that's really the major thing is, and I know we've talked a lot about health, but it's a major thing is they have to stay healthy. So
I agree.
So I mean, as far as keeping Josh Allen up, I want to see. I don't want to see Josh doing a lot of the running stuff or anything like that. I want to see him sit in the pocket and find his reads and actually, I'm not saying take it away from him during the regular season, but I don't want to see it during the preseason because I don't want to see him get hurt. I know it's football, and I know he's going to want to try and do that if he has a lane, but hopefully he gets down and slides if he were to need to scramble or anything like that. But with that being said, I mean, I'm excited to see, Diggs get to start. I'm excited to see Davis on the field. I want to see if Isabella does get any time with the ones.
If he does, I guess that could be a sign of get your reps with the quarterback. Let's see how you do with them, and see if you make the roster.
Yeah, I mean for sure, and that's exactly why I want to see if he goes with the ones and see if they can, kind of feed him the ball a little bit, to see what he can do, because it is preseason. It is the time for not necessarily experimenting, but seeing what these guys have in certain positions.
I agree.
So
another position I'm looking forward to seeing is Dorian Williams. I want to see him get with the second team. I felt he played pretty well.
I think that they are still going to keep him at behind Milano, and then go with still Dodson and Klein at the middle linebacker spot. Sal said Spector did practice today, so that's definitely a good thing. So hopefully he gets a shot with either the twos or the three or twos and threes. I don't see him getting a shot with the ones, but you never know. I really feel like that position is the major position to watch this year to see how it goes. And does Brandon Beane go out and go get somebody if they need to? Because Dodson looked lost. He looked horrible. He looked lost. I mean, I counted at least 3 different times he shot the wrong gap. I saw that, the one time he, on the one play, I think it was like 4 minutes left in the first quarter, he got completely faked out on the play action fake and took 2 steps forward, and the quarterback just threw it over his head. Maybe if that's Tremaine Edmonds, it gets knocked down, but guess what? We have Terrell Dodson now. He's not Tremaine Edmonds. He's more of your downhill linebacker than he is, your coverage linebacker. And I truly think this team is going to be better off with coverage linebackers on the field, so they match up better. But they also have to be able to tackle when things do break down up front. Because I'm not saying that it's going to break down every play or anything like that, but we're playing 53 other guys that are getting paid also. So things are going to happen where somebody's going to open something up, and it's going to happen. I'd like to see those kept at a minimum, but you also have to have guys that can tackle when those things do happen.
For a guy who knows our defense, it didn't look like he knew it at all.
Yeah, I mean, it was terrible. I mean, I'm not trying to be so hard on him, but I mean, that's why I asked Sal. I asked him. I mean, is it because of how much pressure's on him? Is it because he has a lot of pressure on it to try and make this spot, and he's not doing well.
Not at all.
The other thing that I'm looking forward to see on Saturday specifically is who gets to start at cornerback too.
That was actually the next point I wanted to bring up. So this is perfect.
So
Dane
who do you think gets to start at cornerback too this week?
I think it'll probably be Dane Jackson, especially with him having the interception last week. Kyer Elam struggled at times. Benford didn't hear much. I didn't hear about his name as much, which is a good thing if you're a corner. You're not being picked on. But yeah, I definitely think it'll be Dane Jackson, especially going out there with the starters opposite side of Trey. I want it to be Elam, but after the way he performed against Indianapolis, I just don't think it will be Elam.
Yeah, that's the tough part is like you think that you're going to see somebody like Elam, who was a former first round pick last year from the Bills, and you want him to reach that ceiling that he has. But at the same time, it seems like Dane Jackson is the more consistent player. Not necessarily consistent, but he seems to be in the right position
at the right
most
time.
of the time. Yeah, and as much as I don't like him as far as being a number one cornerback like he was last year when Trey White was out, he might slot well into being a cornerback too. But I could also see them, trying to, move one of these three guys also.
They could.
And I don't see it being Benford or Elam because they both were just drafted last year and they both are younger, and I think both of them have more upside than Dane Jackson does. I think Dane Jackson's at his ceiling right now.
So do I. I do too.
So in the end of it, who do you think ends up winning that cornerback 2 battle?
It's hard to say because, especially with the performance Elam put on in live action against the Colts, he didn't look that good. He had that one pass interference call. I still think it might be Dane Jackson, unless Kyer shows out against George Pickens, who picked on him last year in the regular season. And then, but you also have Christian Benford, who played well when he played last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will come down to Benford or Dane Jackson, and I think it's gonna be Dane Jackson. Like, because like you said, he's always it seems like he's in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and I mean, is that because of film study? Is that because of luck? Is that because he's setting himself up in the right position? I mean, conventional thinking and watching film is just saying that he's just there all the time, but we don't see what they do off the field to make sure he is in that position. But I really think that with Trey White being back as the number one cornerback, I think he slots in well as CB2 or CB3 if Benford or Elam were to win that job.
I agree.
So what do you got next?
The next topic I had was who was your offensive and defensive player of the game?
Well, let's see here. So I really think that Isabella is probably mine, either Isabella or Barkley, because I mean Barkley was 14 of 17 and 170 yards.
Yep, 2 touchdowns.
Yep. And they were nice throws too. I mean, they were real nice throws too, where he, the Shavers one could have probably been any receiver, just because of the way the play was set up. But it still had to be a really nice throw. And then my favorite thing was the one drive that they scored where Patman scored at the end.
And Josh ran on the field.
And Josh was calling those plays, which
maybe.
I wish that they'd just give him the reins and let him go on the field.
I agree.
I mean, not necessarily like K-gun type stuff, but let him call the offense on the field and see what he sees. You still have Dorsey who's in the in the box up top, and he can see the field. So until that 15-second shut off time hits on the microphone or on the headset, he can tell him what he's seeing, so he gets the right play call in there, and set up correctly rather than having to worry about telling Josh what the play is and then having Josh tell the huddle what the play is. Let's get up and run some no huddle and just go.
Just keep going, keep going. I like that.
Yeah, keep your foot on the gas, and because a lot of times you see with the Bills is they don't keep their foot on the gas.
They don't. Look at the Packers last year.
Yeah,
a lot closer.
But I mean that comes down to, was that more Packers defense or was that more the Bills slowing down? So I really don't know, but I really am excited to see this game on Saturday, especially against a little bit of a better competition than what the Colts were. Not saying they're a bad team at all. I mean, I think we had them, when we did our roster breakdowns, I think we had them at like 25 or 23, something like that. But they don't have Jonathan Taylor. They don't have, they don't have a receiving core. So it's tough. But the other thing too that I wanted to kind of get to real quickly is, and it's un-Bills related, but it is kind of Bills related. How do you feel about both, Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook joining the AFC East?
Well, I think the Ezekiel Elliott one, he's going to be the backup. I mean, they still have Stevenson, who's really – I think we might see Ezekiel Elliott in the goal line situation, kind of like what we're doing here with James Cook and Damian Harris.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a nice pickup for them. And for the Jets, obviously, I still trying to figure out – I know why they did it. I understand Breece Hall's coming back. But if he just got activated from the PUP list the day after, why would you – are you just trying to put another name on your offense to make it look better?
I mean, I guess it's more, at least from my point of view with Dalvin Cook, is it's more insurance for Breece Hall. Because if he's not ready week one, then you can slide Dalvin Cook right in there and, have a pass catching back, have that running back and things like that, where they are able to be set up for that. Whereas if Breece Hall goes in and he's not ready and he looks like crap, I mean, what are they going to do? They don't have somebody. What are they going to trust, Michael Carter?
No. I see that. I do.
But also on Ezekiel Elliott, I think he's slotted very well in that RB2 position for the Patriots, because you got Ramondre Stevenson, but when he needs a breather, you have a former first round pick that is going to come in and be able to run the ball. I do think he's lost a step, but he looks really good from, any of the stuff that I've seen from him, in his workout videos that he's had on Instagram and Twitter and things like that. So no, I think that he's very well suited for that RB2 role, though.
Do you think we'll see Elliott more in a goal line situation, kind of like with Harris here? Or do you think just when Stevenson needs a break, then we'll see Elliott?
I mean, it really depends, because we all know how that Bill Belichick used both Stevenson and Damian Harris last year and the year before. He likes to use his running backs, and I could see one series being Elliott's, and then Stevenson will come in and give him a breather, and then another series is Stevenson's and Elliott gives him a breather, and kind of go back and forth, or they go with the hot hand. But do I see him more in a goal line role? I don't see him more in a goal line role, but he also is suited better for that too at this point in his career.
Maybe that's why I think we'll see him more in a goal line situation, because he has lost a step and he's a bigger back. Would you say he's a bigger back?
I would definitely say he's a bigger back. I know he lost a little bit of weight this year, but
well, I guess we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I mean, that's something that I definitely want to see. I definitely want to see how things shake out this week of the preseason now, with starters throughout the NFL typically playing this week. Probably won't see any of them in week 3, just because that's your last game, last time before cuts and everything like that. So how do you feel? Like, what are your takeaways from wanting to see this week overall?
Well, the first thing I want to see Josh take his checkdowns. we don't need to go Hail Mary. Well, not Hail Marys, but Diggs run a go route, Davis run a go route. I just want to see the checkdowns. I want to see like those little curl routes, the checkdowns to the running back, the slants. You don't always have to look downfield. Look for your checkdowns first, then make your way down the field. I want to see the offensive line with good, just block well, especially against Pittsburgh's front their defensive line. And for the defense side of the ball, I want to see constant pressure, kind of like what we saw against Indy.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
what
For sure. No, I mean, I really think that we may see them. I'm excited to see Kenny Pickett. I want to see how he's grown this year, and see how he handles pressure from a good defensive line, back there. I want to see Najee Harris, see if he bounces back. I mean, I know I'm getting into like fantasy stuff now, but
I had him.
as far as some of those players, but Najee Harris, I mean, he had a bad year last year. Whereas this year, I hope he turns it around because, I mean, more of a fantasy side of myself wants to see him produce this year. But with that being said, I mean, I think the Bills beat the Steelers this week. I really do.
So do I.
But I was wrong last week, so
maybe we can stick with that. You want to say?
Yeah, right. The Bills are going to lose this week.
Well, I'm going to do the same things I did last week. I have Buffalo winning. I think Josh drives Buffalo down the field twice, 2 touchdown drives, 1 being passing, 1 being a rushing touchdown.
I could definitely see that. I mean, I do think the Bills are going to beat the Steelers this week. I don't see them losing to the Steelers this week. But I think Josh does drive them down. I could see him. I could see because he's getting a quarter and a half. I could see him putting up 3 touchdowns. Between throwing and running. But
just stay in the pocket, Josh.
Yeah, but with that being said, I mean I got nothing else tonight. Pat, do you have anything else?
I do have one more question for you. Yeah. What is your key to victory? Give me 2 keys to victory.
Well, that's tough because it is preseason.
It is.
My major key is to stay healthy. That's all I really care about. I know that's not a key to victory, but it's going to be a key to victory for the rest of the season.
Yes.
Is to keep these guys healthy. That's really one of the major things that I think of. But as far as another key to victory, at least for this week, I think that they have to use their slot guys. I think that they have to use their slot guys. I think they have to, use those unders, and I think Josh needs to find those reads, especially when he's in the game, and do more of the same for Barkley and Kyle Allen, I should say.
Yeah.
So,
well,
with that being said, what are your keys?
My key to victory are win in the trenches, offensive side and defensive side. Win in the trenches. And my second one would be Josh taking checkdowns. That's all I have.
For sure. Let's end it right there. And I do want to let everybody know we first and foremost, we want to thank Sal for coming on with us at Sal Sports. Definitely give him a follow. Bill's sideline reporter. Give us a follow at the Buffalo Basement Podcast on Twitter. And we are, sponsored by or brought to you by the Stang Insurance Consultants. And we definitely want to thank you guys for joining us here on YouTube tonight. A little bit of technical difficulties, but next week we will have Greg Thompson from Cover One coming on, and we'll go over some things with him next week and see what we have next week. Definitely join us next week live at Thursday at 7.
All right.
And as always, go Bills.
Go Bills.